What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the things I learnt from the internal trial that occurred on Friday night. It was a big day for Alberton, in particular the fans, coming out for the first time at a big event to see the club have a hit out and see exactly who's been impressive this pre-season. And let me tell you, it wasn't the most exciting of internal trials, and I think to get our hopes up over such a nothing game as such, and it's really just, it's a glorified training session, really. A full game where you get to watch your team play and they're having hit out against each other. They're not going full throttle. They don't need to go full throttle. So you're trying to grab some things that you did learn, and overall I took a few things away from it. Definitely wasn't the most impressive internal trial, but nonetheless it was an eye-catching one to say the least. So we'll get into it, and these are the things I learned from the internal trial. I did mention it wasn't the most exciting internal trial. It did fall flat. I really felt like it was one of the more less energetic internal trials I've been to. I don't know whether it was just the feel at the moment. There's a weird aura about Port Adelaide and just in general in football at the moment. I think the fans came out, they were happy, the precinct was buzzing, the football club was buzzing, it's getting its redevelopment done and it's looking fantastic. I think that aspect really drew a good crowd, 3,000 people. I think overall, some of the new recruits definitely brought a bit of energy and a bit of spark, but overall I think it just fell flat. I don't think people got too much excitement from it, nor should you. I don't think an internal trial is supposed to give you so much hope into a new year. That's just bizarre, really. But the excitement for football at the moment is probably not quite there. I don't know if it's still just the mid-February thing. And once it kicks off, we'll really just get into it. But yeah, it fell flat in my opinion, and it's not something I'll dwell on too much. But yeah, it wasn't an energetic thing for me, and I really couldn't get myself going to watch it. That's just a personal opinion. It could be something different for someone else. I know a lot of kids were smiling. It was great to have families back at Alberton, and really fantastic to see that aspect. But overall, there was just no energy from me and no energy to get excited just yet. Tell you what though, you put burgers on the menu at Alberton and it will taste exceptionally well. And that's not just on a plate, that's on the footy field, because Bergman and Burgoyne were terrific. I really was impressed with how they performed. Burgoyne is just second nature at the moment, just going through the motions. He looks beautiful on the football field, and that's just skill-wise and the way he plays. I think overall Bergman has this capability now to play anywhere. We saw him slot a fantastic goal from the boundary in the third quarter, I'm pretty sure it was. But his presence on the field is so much bigger now, and Burgoyne as well in his second year is developing really nicely. He's put on a little bit of size, but he's got his pace, he's got his calmness, composure, real Burgoyne-esque feel about it, and it's amazing that these two have sort of in the back half of last year developed a form that was just coincided with each other, and really just an unlikely duo that I would have thought would take games to another level and so quickly, and they found that in the pre-season and really developed nicely. And I think they're going to have a massive hit out come this pre-season against West Coast and Fremantle over in the Perth trip, and then come round one, if Bergman and Burgoyne aren't playing in round one, there is something seriously wrong with the selection panel. The little niggles were around, weren't they? The little niggles. Dixon, Wines and Butters. Butters didn't play at all. Had a little AC joint sprain. Took a hit training. He'll be right to go for the pre-season matches. Dixon took a hit to the ribs, so only played a quarter and a half. I think that definitely took the energy out of it a little bit more for our forward line, for the black team, and the white team was definitely a very potent. I think I read an article about it. It was the probables and the possibles, and I really like the name of those because the possibles were very much outshining the probables, and that's a little bit of a concern. So overall, I think you look at Dixon, you look at Wines, who had a knee cop. He was obviously just precautionary, put some ice on it, so it's a little bit of a concern that there is a few niggles around at the moment in our injuries. We're pretty healthy, but I don't like the sound of being pretty healthy, but people are carrying something in February. So that is a little bit of a concern and something to watch. I don't think it's going to hinder round one for anyone. And we'll have our best team on the park come round one. But yeah, there's a little bit of a concern just from me, and I think that sort of went up a level after the internal. Never really thought about it too much. But overall, I think something to watch from those injury fronts. Rioli and Fantasia are going to be fantastic. I think the duo there, small forwards, are going to really hit it off in terms of, chemistry and being able to be under the feet of Dixon, Marshall, and Georgiades. Lachie Jones is another I'll get to in a second. Just the way they were able to manipulate their small defenders and just move around the pack. Fantasia was really, really crafty. I think he was very well energized. He looked fit. He was moving. So that was really great to see. If he stays like that, we're going to have a very potent forward line. I was talking to Jack Hudson and we were saying, the way that our forward line is, it's perfect. It's a perfect setup. You'll have Rioli, you'll have Fantasia, you have Boak at half forward, you'll have Marshall, Georgiades, Dixon. You're going to have other small forwards lying around there, resting forwards in Rosie and Butters and Horne-Francis as well. It's just a mix that's going to really work. And I really feel like it will work. We end up coming to the conclusion that we're just going to bomb it in long and hope for the very best. It's not going to work out. We've got to get that out of our minds. It was still there in bits and bobs last night in the internal. But overall, if that gets work and that works well on the footy field, they're going to be potent. Lachie Jones, I wanted to talk about. He was spending a little bit more midfield time, which I really, really liked. I didn't mind that at all. And the way with his big body and his speed and pace, I really feel like he can be an attribute in there. And it's a left field option as well. You don't have to go for your Rosie Butters, Jason Horne-Francis, Travis Boak, Ollie Wines, throwing Pau Pepper in there, and Willem Drew. There's rotations. There's going to be a real big squeeze for that midfield. And if Lachie Jones is a left field option, then that's definitely something I'm all for. And his big body and his pace and his gorgeous mullet are really just going to impress. And I thought he was very impressive in the way he moved. He looked fit. He looked firing. And he's definitely one to watch this year. A couple more things before I sign off. The ruck situation was very interesting. Lysette, Visentini, Teakle. Obviously, I thought Teakle and Visentini were very, very impressive. Visentini was very clumsy, and it's a typical Primus look, I feel. But that's not a bad thing, because if Ruckman being clumsy and really barreling through the contest, he was very, very handy. Well, Teakle looks really, really good. He's going to really push for that number one ruck spot. And then lastly was Lysette. I haven't seen him for a while, haven't we? So I think he's just getting back into the groove. It's going to be number one pick, Ruckman. See how you go. If it doesn't work out, you've got Teakle, you've got Visentini to go for. And it'll be an interesting situation. I don't think it's a good one. I don't think it's a bad one. It's just an interesting one and one to watch. And finally, the thing I learnt most from this internal trial was that this one was sloppy. It's just one of those things with Port Adelaide, isn't it? Like you just see sloppiness and you just go, oh, not again. It's that meme from GTA. Ah, shit, here we go again. Like, that is just what I felt watching the game. And that third quarter was absolutely abysmal. Goal kicking. It was a strong wind at Alberton. There was fumbly hands. I'm not saying this is just a rant about how sloppy the skills were. It was just not good to watch. And that's just going to happen in internal. It's just always what an internal trial is. I'll be judging more when it comes to the pre-season matches. In particular, the one against Fremantle, because that's when you're in your groove. That's when you're just before round one. You've got to be hitting your prime position ready to go for the first official game of the year. So I won't leave my thoughts hanging until then, but I really feel like that will be the pinpoints to see where we're at in terms of have we've had a good pre-season or not. But overall, Jason Horne-Francis, tick of approval for me. Looked very good early and was quiet in stages, a little bit more forward than probably I thought. Definitely behind in his running with the surgery, but that's okay. It's going to come with match fitness. So he'll be very, very good come the start and pushing towards the year. But there's not too much expectation on that kid already, and it's not impressive. It's not going to be impressive if you have such a high expectation on a second-year kid. Got to get that into people's minds, because if he's coming into this year with so much expectation to change our game plan, to change our lives, therapy is cheaper. But I'm just going to say that for Port fans, because we can't have the expectation that he's going to absolutely outshine every single game of every single week this year. He's a second-year kid. Let's just see how he tracks. I'll be judging this deal longer term. But overall, footy's back. Thank you for watching, Port fans. Make sure you leave a comment about what your thoughts were for the internal trial if you were there. Thank you for everyone that did come up and say hello. It was very nice to see a few faces. So Definitely looking forward to doing more of that this year. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, so make sure you jump on board if you haven't already. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, we'll see you next week for more content. AFL predictions coming very, very soon. Trial match against West Coast is next Friday night. Looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you for watching. My name is Anthony, and as always, go the pair.